Hi everyone! So in this video I'm going to talk through how I made the cage liners for the guinea pig's new cage. And I can't believe I haven't made cage liners before because the method that I use is super easy, and I thought I'd share it with you all, and if you haven't already you can maybe have a go at making your own. So we'll just take a closer look. Obviously they've got fleece on top, and the purpose of having fleece is that it is a nice soft layer that wicks any moisture away, so it still feels nice and dry under your piggy's feet. And in order for the fleece to do this, we need to have an absorbent layer underneath it. And in between here I've got an old mattress protector which is acting as my absorbent layer, but you can use different things. You can use old towels and other things like that. And then on the bottom here I actually have a waterproof layer. Over here I have everything that you'll need to make your own cage liners. We'll start off with the materials, which I kind of spoke about briefly. For the fleece, I got mine from B&M, and I got 2 for £4, which I think is really good value. If you're from the UK, you can also get fleece from Primark for quite cheap as well. And if we just take a closer look at it, as you can see, it doesn't have a very high pile on it, and the pile is just the amount of fuzz that it has, so it's quite flat. And although it might not be the best quality fleece, it does actually work really well for liners because it stops any hay and debris getting stuck in it, and it is much easier to sweep than kind of a real fuzzy fluffy fleece. Then for the absorbent layer, I've got some different options you can use here. Firstly, you can use old towels that I've got there on the bottom, or you can use a special absorbent material. I've got Zorb here, which is one of the most absorbent materials you can get. And I'm not going to actually use it for my liners, I'm going to use it for the pads, which are focused on like some of the most pee central areas in the cage. And then I've also got an old mattress protector here. And you can even buy new mattress protectors because they are only really cheap. It is recommended that you get one that contains a bit of cotton in it because cotton acts as the absorbent layer. Then last of all, here's the waterproof material which I'm using. And I thought this is really good actually. Again, it's from B&M. It was £10 for a double, so it's fairly big. I can probably get a few liners out of here. And it is coated in this terry toweling, which is yet another absorbent layer, so it's kind of a 2-in-1, this one. And then also what we'll need is your sewing machine. If you don't have a sewing machine you can use, or someone you can borrow one off, you can make the liners by hand. It will take longer though. And then your other bits and bobs you'll need include a tape measure for measuring and cutting out, scissors, and then your other sewing supplies like your thread and your pins. So that's everything that you'll need, and now I'm going to go through the method step by step. So the first thing that you'll need to do is measure the area of the cage that you want the liner to fit. And I'm wanting to make another lengthways one to go along this long side of the cage. So I'm going to measure from this side first right to here where the liner will go. It's about 70 centimetres that way, and I already know it is about 152 centimetres the other way. So you need to make a note of the measurements, and then you want to add 5 centimetres to both measurements. Here's my little bit of paper, and as you can see there's the measurement, 70 centimetres by 152, add 5 to both, and that gives me the measurements of the fabric that I need to cut out, including the seam allowance. It might also be useful to write down the measurements that you've got of the materials. So for example, my fleece is only 120 by 150 centimetres, so it's not long enough, which could be a major problem, but actually we can get around that quite easily, and I'll show you how. The second step is to cut out your fabrics and make sure they are all the same size. But actually the first step for me is to trim the skirt off the mattress protector. So if you've got a mattress protector using one of those and it's got a skirt on it, you need to just cut this away. So what I'm going to do now is spread out this waterproof layer and then show you how I'm going to get the measurements right to cut it out. So now I'm going to set the measure to the first of my 2 measurements, which was 75 centimetres, So there's the end of the tape measure, and that's where I'm going to cut into the fabric. And then once I've made the first cut, I'm just simply going to move this up a bit. So I've just set the measure to 157 centimetres. Make sure it's in line with the edge that you've cut. And then, as we can see, pretty much perfect, spot on. So now I'm going to use the same method, but cut across here to the other side of the fabric there, moving the tape measure up this way and keeping it at 157 centimetres. So there we have it. I've made my last cut up that edge of the fabric, and I have the rectangle, which is the right measurements for the cage liner that I'm going to make. And what's good now is that you can use the first piece of material that you've cut out as a pattern for the others. To fix the fact that the fleece is ever so slightly too short, I'm just going to cut another section of fleece and then sew them together before I sew the whole liner together. So if you do find that you need to do something like this, all you do is get the remaining fleece and lay it over, but overlap it slightly. So I'm just going to overlap it by a couple of centimetres. So once you've laid it on, just cut round it as you did with the other piece. Sewn on that side, we fold it out. This is what it will look like from the top, so it's barely noticeable, it's just a simple straight seam, and to be honest it's probably going to have something covering it up anyway. So you can use this method for any of the layers really, if you've got too many pieces or you've got pieces the wrong side, to kind of patch them up and make them fit, especially if it's for the mid layer like towels. Obviously you won't even see any signs of that at all because the seam will be inside. Now we have all three layers cut out, I'm going to show you how we arrange them before pinning them and sewing them all together. So this is the important part. Once you've laid your fleece down, you need to make sure that you put your base layer waterproof side down. So the right side of the fleece is facing the right side of the waterproof layer. And the last layer to go on is the mattress protector. The next thing we have to do is go all the way around, pinning everything in place. So there we are, all the pins are in now, and it is really useful at this stage just to check that the pins are going through every layer of material. So if you have a quick turn over, you should be able to see all the pins coming through the fleece. As long as you've got the pins going through all three and you sew along where the pins are or just within them, then you know that all the fabrics are going to be sewn well together and that from the outside it will look perfect. So that's the next step for me now, going back to the sewing machine and sewing all the way around. The one thing that I am going to do, on one of the sides I'm going to leave a gap about 10 centimetres or so, and that gap is going to be for turning the liner inside out once it's sewn. So I've just finished sewing, and as you can see I've gone all the way around. I have just left that gap at this end. And it is about 10 centimetres or so wide, which should be big enough for me to turn the liner inside out. But before I do that, there is one final thing to do, and that is to cut the corners and ensure that when we do turn them inside out, they're going to be nice and pointy because they won't have all this fabric in the way. Here you can see the seam along the fleece. So the right side of the fleece is facing inwards, so this bit will be inside the cage liner and we won't see that. So for the corners, what you do is not too close to the seam, but fairly close. You can go fairly close, maybe leaving about 1/2 centimetre. Trim the corner off, and then also trim along either side, going up diagonally towards the corner, and the same on the other side, like that. There we are, so the liner is the right way around now. So we've got the waterproof layer on the bottom and then the fleece on the top, and there again you can see the seam of the two fleeces that just appears as a line. Right, so the final thing is to sew up the hole that's left. So here's the hole that we used to turn the liner inside out, and all I'm going to do for mine is sew the hole up from the outside. If you really want it to be neat, you can pin it together like I'm going to do now, but do a slip stitch. So you can do it by hand if you really want to. And a slip stitch is where you just get the needle and you get a bit of fabric from one side, pull it through, and then a bit of fabric from the other side and pull it through again, and go on and on. So you very carefully stitch both sides together without it having any seam that's visible on it, so it just looks like the rest of it like this. But that is a bit of effort really, which I don't think is necessary. I'm not too bothered about having a small little seam on the side of the liner. So if you just pin those sides together like so, and then I'm going to stitch that up on the machine. I'm going to sew along as close to the edge as I dare, and of course I'm going to do reverse stitch at either end of the seam so that it keeps it nice and secure. So that's that done, and that's what the little seam looks like once the hole is sealed up. And that is the last step that I've taken to finish the cage liner. So it's all done. You can, if you want, do some top stitching, so you can just sew over, for example, around the edge with the sewing machine, going through all the layers. But I haven't top stitched over any of the ones that I've made so far, and it hasn't really made any difference to them. So yes, that's it, the liner is finished. I'll just lay it out on the carpet so we can see it all in one shot. So there it is, all finished, and you can see the edges nice and neat. There's no other bits of material sticking out that shouldn't be. We've got the nice neat corners because we cut out those extra bits of seam. And yes, I'm sure it will fit perfectly in the cage, as we have left that 5 centimetre for seam allowance. Even though we didn't quite use all of it, it does really help to just have a bit extra, and then we know it's definitely not going to be too small. I think the liners, together with the use of pads, is a really great way to make your cages easy to clean. So I think on that note, I'll leave this video here. I know it's been a bit of a long one, and I am sorry about that, but it does take time to explain things, and I probably go into a bit too much detail sometimes. But let me know if you found the video useful, and if you think you might have a go at making your own liners. As I said, you don't even really need to buy anything specially for them. If you've got old towels and you've got fleece, you can make a liner from that using the same method. You don't always have to have the waterproof layer on the bottom, not if you don't want to. I'll just say hello quickly to the piggies. Here's little Twiglet. She seems to be getting bigger by the day. Hey? And then Spritey's in there. Then over here, there's Willow munching on some of the Timothy hay that I just put in. And then I think there's a little Lyra in here. Hi, baby. Hello, cutie pie. So look out for the next video. There might be some updates in between, but I will be working on a picking up and taming with young guinea pigs, because I think it's really important to start from when they're young and yeah, really encourage them to come out of their shell from when they're a little baby, even if they are shy piggies like little Lyra here. Okay then, I'll stop rambling on. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please leave your comments below if you did, or if you have any more questions then please ask and I'll try and get back to you. So thank you for watching. Goodbye!